On a cold October morning in 1927, in a cemetery in New Jersey, a group of men gathered around a grave and began to dig. The woman buried there had been dead for 5 years. They were digging her up to answer one question. And when they opened the coffin, they had their answer before a single test was run. Because inside that dark coffin, 5 years after her death, her bones were glowing. Her name was Mollie. She was 24 when she died, and she was one of hundreds of American girls who had spent their days doing something that sounds like a fairy tale painting watches with liquid light. Paint that glowed in the dark. They put the brushes between their lips to sharpen the tip again and again, thousands of times, because that's what the company taught them to do. The company told them the paint was harmless. The company told them it was actually good for them. The company was lying. In their own laboratory, the men handled that same paint with lead aprons and metal tongs. The girls got nothing. And when the girls' teeth started falling out, when their jawbones began to crumble in their dentist's fingers, the company looked at these dying young women and told the world they had syphilis. So 5 of them, too sick to stand, too weak to even raise their arms and take the oath in court, decided to spend the last months of their lives doing one thing: making the company pay. This is the story of the Radium Girls, the shining women, and it does not end where you think it ends, because the paint inside their bones will keep glowing in their graves for more than 1,000 years. To understand how this happened, you have to understand what radium meant to America in the early 1900s. Because we look back and see poison. They looked at it and saw a miracle. Radium was the most glamorous substance on planet Earth. Discovered by Marie Curie, rarer than diamonds, more expensive than gold, and it glowed. All by itself, forever, with a soft, unearthly light. Scientists knew it destroyed human tissue, and doctors were using it to burn away tumors. So the public did the math wrong. If it kills cancer, it must give life. America went insane for it. They put radium in toothpaste, in face creams, in chocolate. There was radium water, sold as a health tonic that would cure everything from arthritis to low energy. The glow itself became a promise. This is science. This is health. This is the future. And then somebody found the perfect job for it. It was 1917. America was entering the First World War, and every soldier, every pilot, every ship needed instruments a man could read in the dark. Watch dials, gun sights, altimeters, all painted with radium so they glowed in the trenches. Almost overnight, dial painting studios opened across the country. And in Orange, New Jersey, the United States Radium Corporation began hiring. They didn't hire men. They hired girls. Teenagers, mostly 14, 15, 18 years old, because the work needed small, steady, patient hands. And for those girls, this was the golden ticket. The pay was extraordinary. These became some of the best paid working women in America. The work was clean, delicate, almost artistic. You sat at a long table with your friends in your good clothes, and you painted tiny glowing numbers onto watch faces for the boys fighting overseas. Girls begged to get their sisters and cousins hired. One of the first through the door in the spring of 1917 was a sharp, confident 18-year-old named Grace Fryer. Remember her. She's the one who ends this story. Now the brushes. The numbers on those dials were fractions of a millimeter wide, and the camel hair brushes would splay out after a stroke or two. So the company taught every girl the same technique, the technique that decides everything that follows. Lip, dip, paint. Put the brush between your lips to draw it to a fine point. Dip it in the radium. Paint the number. Grace Fryer later said she could do about 2 numbers before the brush dried out. Then back to the lips. Every number, every dial, hundreds of dials a day, week after week, year after year. Every single time the girls swallowed a little bit of radium, some of them asked. It seems impossible now, but they asked the very question you're screaming at the screen. Is this stuff safe to put in our mouths? And the managers looked these teenage girls in the eye and said yes. Harmless, some said it would put roses in their cheeks. Good for you girls, keep painting. And so the studio turned into something out of a dream. The radium dust hung in the air and settled on everything: their tables, their dresses, their skin, their hair. When the girls walked home at night, they glowed. Faintly, softly, like ghosts. People in their neighborhoods actually called them the Ghost Girls, and the girls leaned into the magic of it. They wore their best dresses to work so the dresses would soak up the shine for the dances on the weekend. They painted their fingernails with it. One girl painted her teeth with radium before a date so her smile would glow in the dark when the lights went down. Grace Fryer noticed that when she blew her nose, her handkerchief glowed in the dark. Everyone laughed about it. Everyone knew the stuff was harmless. Everyone had been told. Here is what the girls were not told. Over in the company's laboratory in another part of the same building, the male chemist, by 1924, it wasn't one girl anymore. It was a pattern. Aching jaws, crumbling teeth, mysterious anemias. Young women in Orange, New Jersey were wasting away, and every one of them had the same former employer. Quietly, the company got nervous, not about the girls, about the business. So they did something that looks, on paper, almost honorable. They hired independent experts from Harvard to study the plant. The experts came. They tested the dust, the air, the girls, and they concluded exactly what you already know: the radium was poisoning the dial painters. The report landed on the company president's desk, and it died there. The company buried the report. Worse, a cleaned-up version was passed along, scrubbed of the danger. And the company kept insisting, publicly and repeatedly, that radium was safe. When independent researchers got too close to the truth, the company threatened them. This is the part to hold on to. From this moment forward, every girl who put that brush to her lips was being poisoned by a company that had written proof of what it was doing to her. The truth needed a man who couldn't be bought. It found one in 1925, a county medical examiner named Dr. Harrison Martland. Martland ran the tests the company never wanted run, and he uncovered the horrifying mechanism of what was happening inside these women. Radium, it turns out, is a chemical imposter. Once swallowed, the body mistakes it for calcium. And what does your body do with calcium? It builds your bones with it. So the girls' own bodies had taken the radium and packed it, molecule by molecule, into their skeletons, into their jaws, their spines, their hips. And there it sat, radioactive, firing day and night, drilling their bones hollow from the inside. The glow wasn't on them. It was in them. It was them. And there was no way to ever get it out. Martland's science destroyed the company's lies. But science isn't justice, and when the dying girls turned to the law, they discovered the cruelest trap of all. New Jersey's law said a worker had 2 years to sue for a workplace injury. Radium takes 5 years, sometimes longer, just to show its first symptoms. By the time any girl knew she was dying, her right to sue had already expired. The company hadn't just poisoned them. It had run out the clock while doing it. Lawyer after lawyer looked at these women and turned them away. The case was unwinnable. Grace Fryer didn't care. Remember her, the 18-year-old from 1917? She was in her 20s now, her spine crumbling, held upright by a steel back brace, her teeth gone. and she spent 2 full years dying, knocking on law office doors until she found a young attorney named Raymond Berry who was willing to take the unwinnable case. In 1927, Grace sued the United States Radium Corporation. 4 other dying women joined her: Edna, Catherine, and 2 sisters, Quinta and Albina. Their maiden name was Maggia. They were Mollie's sisters. The newspapers took one look at these 5 young women and gave the case a name that ran in headlines around the world: The 5 Women Doomed to Die. And the company's old lie about Mollie syphilis was still out there, still poisoning the case. So the lawyers did the unthinkable. In October 1927, 5 years after her death, they exhumed Mollie Maggia. This is the grave from the beginning of our story. They opened her coffin in front of witnesses, and there in the dark her bones glowed. Softly, unmistakably, 5 years in the ground, and the radium inside her skeleton was still firing. The tests confirmed it. No syphilis. Radium poisoning. A dead girl, slandered by her own employer, testified from inside her coffin and told the truth. In January 1928, the case finally reached a courtroom. What the reporters saw there broke the country's heart. The 5 women were so weak that not one of them could raise her arm to take the oath. Grace sat rigid in her back brace. 2 of the women couldn't leave their beds at all. And the company's response to this? Delay. Their star witnesses, the court was told, were unavailable. They were spending the summer in Europe. The judge adjourned the case for months. The strategy was as simple as it was monstrous. These plaintiffs are dying. Wait long enough, and the problem buries itself. It might have worked, except the whole world was watching now. The story was in papers across America and Europe. Even Marie Curie herself was asked about the dying American dial painters. The company's name was turning to poison in the public's mouth. And so in June 1928, days before the trial would have reached its verdict, the United States Radium Corporation settled. Each of the 5 women received $10,000 plus $600 a year for life, plus all medical costs. For life. The company knew exactly how short that promise was going to be. Quinta died the next year. Grace Fryer, the girl who wouldn't quit, the girl who made all of it happen, held on until 1933. But listen to what they bought with those final years. Their case established, for the first time in American history, the principle that a corporation could be held responsible for the disease its work put inside a worker's body. That idea, which protects every single American worker today, was paid for by 5 women who knew the money would outlive them. You'd think that's where it ends. It isn't. Because 800 miles west in Ottawa, Illinois, another company, Radium Dial, had been reading about the New Jersey case in the papers. They knew. And they kept their own girls lip-pointing anyway, for years, right through it all. When those girls began to die, the fight started all over again, and it took until 1938 when a dial painter named Catherine Donahue, weighing barely 70 pounds, testified from a couch carried into the courtroom because she could no longer sit upright. She won. She was dead within weeks. The companies never stopped on their own. Not once. They were stopped. And the strangest part of this whole story is what the girls' bodies went on to do. Because their bones, loaded with radium, glowing in the dark, became one of the most important scientific records on Earth. For decades, researchers studied the dial painters, the living and the dead, to understand what radiation does inside a human body. The safety standards that protected the workers who built the atomic bomb, and later, the people who work in nuclear medicine saving lives today, were built directly on what the Radium Girls skeletons taught the world. They were the first people in history to teach us the true cost of the atom. They just never volunteered for the job. Today, in a cemetery in New Jersey, Mollie Maggia lies under a corrected gravestone. The syphilis lie is gone. And in her bones, and in the bones of every ghost girl buried across America, the radium is still there. Still firing. It has a half-life of 1,600 years. The company that swore the glow was harmless died a long time ago. The men who buried the report are gone. The courthouse itself will crumble, and those girls will still be glowing softly, patiently, in the dark under our feet like the truth itself, refusing to go out. This is Cindergrave, the stories the past tried to bury and hoped you'd never read. If you want more of them, subscribe, because it was always darker than they taught you.